Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today, we are thinking about the delicate balance of reason in the cancel culture in arts and academia. This is something that we really need to think about because arts and academia, oh my goodness, they really have a big impact on people's lives. So this is truly important. So thank you so much, Sean, for coming on my show and sharing us with us your thoughts, your perspective, and why this is something that we all need to think about. So, okay, let's just dive right in. Why do you think this is something that we should think about?
Right. Thank you for that. Well, it's art. Art is an expression of people's soul. It's a reflection of society. It's how people feel and beautiful things too. But when it comes to being a reflection of things, it should be reflected in full, not in just politics or in what's fashionable or in messaging. And it's very hard to be a successful artist these days, or any kind of artist, if you don't have a message attached to what you do. And the book that I've just published, The Delicate Balance of Reason, goes into all the cancel culture reasons, culture war reasons rather, including cancel culture around that, and pointing out the problems with it and how intense it's become. And being a reasonable person means actually resisting all that kind of thing, not just saying, yes, well, that's what culture is now.
Yeah, that's true. Not to just throw in the flag and not even have a voice or even a consideration of what's really going on. Because I really do love what you said in the beginning. I had to write that down real quick. The art's the reflection of our soul. Oh my goodness, that is a beautiful statement. Because if you really think about it, it really does represent what's going on inside of us. If we're having dark emotions, we're gonna represent that in our art, in our reading, in our paintings, in our drawings, you know what I mean, in everything that we do. And if we're in a good mood and positive inside, and it's also going to reflect. So it's kind of amazing to think about that because we really don't. So I know you were talking about how the cancel culture affects all of this, and what is your opinions on that?
Well, because arts is a soft target, and people who are into progressiveness, not to attack progressivism itself, which has had led to brilliant things like the civil rights movement and equality feminism and things like this, so positive things for society. Um, there are more and more voices of the centre saying it's been done in a difficult way, as in the arts is the softest place that you can do this because it's easy to capture. It's easy to get into the art schools, into the publishing houses, and to go in there with a political mindset as opposed to an artistic one, and try to change society by changing what we read and what we see. We know why people do that, because as children, they want to change the world and they want to be the change and all that sort of stuff. That's valid up to a certain point. It's valid up to a point where we've got equality, which actually we have. But everyone goes that we don't have equality as well, but actually we do. And we have a great deal of equality. It's kind of what we do with it now, how we're doing it on an interpersonal level. And to keep the message going by societal change in that way is just damaging the arts. And if a person, for example, if a person doesn't believe that a person can change sex, which is not an unusual view, there's a lot of people around the world who believe that people can't change sex. They should be allowed to say that without being cancelled or losing their job just because it's off a company's party line. I'm not
Yeah.
saying a person can or can't change sex. I'm saying they should be allowed to say it without being sacked or cancelled, right? And that can go in many, many different kind of ways.
No, I absolutely agree. And I think that's a great point to point out, especially in this time where people are getting canceled just for even making remarks like that. Or as soon as someone's in disagreement, they just want to cancel them and completely just because they're not agreeing with you. But why can't we tap into critical thinking? Why can't we tap into just respecting the fact that, okay, that's how you think, that's how you perceive it, but it doesn't mean you have to force me to believe in what you believe. You know what I mean? If you believe that you can change sex, okay, believe that, but don't force me to believe that. You know what I mean? And I think that's the problem, is that we are quick to be offended and we are quick to shut things down as soon as we feel like we're being attacked. And so many people feel like they're being attacked. So it just shows that so many people are vulnerable and they are sensitive and they can't just embrace what's being said without claiming it for themselves, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
I know completely what you mean, and you're talking the voice of the rational, the normal person out there, and normal. No one wants to be called normal, but it's a reasonable point of view you come from. Nothing wrong with
Y-
that. Um,
Yeah.
but politically, these days it doesn't help because everyone's binarized. They're all in two places, which is a much more profitable place for the internet companies because then they make their big profits. So they're quite happy with people being in weird camps. And when you come in as a human and say, hang on, can we have a bit of rationality, please? And can I enjoy that painting without thinking 500 years ago their father might have been involved in the slave trade, please? Can I enjoy that painting anyway? And someone saying, no,
Yes.
you can't. You've got to think about the slave trade. Oh, Christ. That kind of thinking is hurting us. It's all about blame culture and blaming other people, whereas all you want to
Yeah.
do is admire a piece of art for what it is.
Yes. Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. I've been saying this in silence. I mean, like in my head, like with people. I mean, I know that's weird to say, but I absolutely agree. People can't let not only just let go, but they feel like they have to hold on to the hate, hold on to the pain, hold on to accusations, hold on to something that will literally change your DNA. All of these negative emotions literally affects all that you are. And how can we eventually stop all of this discrimination when we won't actually let it go? You know what I mean? And I love earlier when you said there's equality is out there. There is a lot of equality. It just comes down to personal choices. And when you start to discriminate and have prejudice and choose to allow yourself to be fall in the racist form or fall in the sexist form or fall in whatever form that you want to fall into, but in reality, it's just like, why can't we just remember the fact that we are all humans and we're all trying our best that we can and we all make mistakes. And now it's like you get canceled for apologizing for something that you've done or said 20, 30 years ago when the time frame, the generation, the life was different back then. You know what I'm saying? And it's ridiculous because I've seen artists who have been canceled over skits or shows that back in the 80s and 70s and 90s were appropriate, you know what I mean, back then. I mean, not saying it's appropriate now, but doesn't mean that you should shame them or cancel them just because of what was acceptable and appropriate back then. If they no longer carry that persona or that mindset now in this day and age, shouldn't you move on too? You know what I mean? Shouldn't you like move forward too? But that's how I see it. How do you see it?
Well, I see it exactly like that, and it's the presentism is what they call that now, which is how we think about, and apparently that's a big we because not everyone thinks like the way the the councillors think, But let's say they do. Everything that has been made in the past needs to correspond with that, and if it doesn't, then it needs to be edited out. And this is essentially social Marxism updated. I'm not going to have an explicit go against Marx like lots of other people in my boat do, because in Karl Marx's time, 150, 200 years ago, he had economic things which had completely different challenges about trying to even up society, which went to communism. We're in a completely different place now, like we said, with things are equal. And now, by and large, in the West, China and the Islamic countries are an entirely different thing, which we can't even discuss on this because it makes no sense to, right? So, but in the West, we do have these equalities, and they are the, for want of a better term, left. But I don't want to be, I don't want your viewers to think that I'm choosing a side. I'm just critiquing
Yeah.
what's going on. It, want things to be as much the same as they possibly can. And the problem is, as you get older, the reality of life realize that the differences between people are the most valuable things about them. The differences are good and they should be celebrated and commented on honestly and that kind of thing. But
Mm.
sex, race, background, class, income, anything. But they don't define the person. They're interesting, but they don't define them. So
Mhm.
the most interesting thing about me is not that I'm white and English. It's probably something else, or the fact that I've written this book or I'm painting this picture. It's just that I'm put into the identity box, and this identity
Hmm.
box serves an aim of equity that we're talking about, which is all about it doesn't matter what you put in, everyone should have the same equity of outcome. That's not equality, it just means everybody receives the same whatever. There's a big misbalance to that, which it's a neo-communism. We might see something like that in lots of coming governments. It's what they want in Europe for sure. And it doesn't look like the 20th century communism, which terrified us all with nuclear bombs and red flags and caps and stuff like that. It's much more smart, women in power suits, having equity, coming in with nothing, going out with everything, whoever you are.
Yeah.
And doing the same thing for some Islamic terrorist patriarch. So it's okay if you want the equity for them too. That's having all of the moral relativism exploded into everything being okay. That's neo-communism. So I think I went off with your question a little bit, but that's where I ended up with it. So yeah.
It's okay. It's a perfectly fine. We people go on rants all the time. I'm guilty, so you're good. And to be honest, it all flows in all together at the end of the day, and that's what I love, because this is what you think about when you wrote this book. You know what I mean? All of these aspects, and it's beautiful because I feel like more people need to just take a second and just reflect on this. You know what I mean? It's not about choosing sides. It's just about thinking rationally and just moving in life rationally, evolving, growing, maturing. You know what I mean? That's what comes with it. You know what I mean? Is just you no longer do something in one stage of your life, but you go on and you can do something else. And I think people get stuck, you know what I mean, so much so that they don't acknowledge that, and they have blinders on, like you said, and it's sad, unfortunately. But I guess my question is, knowing all of this, experiencing all of this, seeing everything, all of this, especially in the West, since this is really big here out here in the US, why write your book?
Why write this book? Cultural things aren't the only thing I write about. The last thing I wrote about last year was compelling speech, and that was about stammering. I'm a stammerer, as comes out from time to time, and
Mhm.
compelling speech refers to an earlier comment of yours in how can they tell us what to say. So I brought it in there in the don't tell me what to say with compelling speech, but also about the process of a stammer and how difficult it is for us to speak anyway. So another animal entirely about stammering. And before that, I've written a lot about music as well. So these subjects I write about. This one now because over COVID times, 2021, I actually started it then and finished it over that year, of isolation and being at home and all this. I put it all together, started to craft the cake, which is how you write a book. I don't just go from beginning to end and go a book. It's much more of a crafted back and forth process. Started then, finished about a year ago, and then got to release it 6 months ago. So basically it's book 9 in a series of this going from music into things like stammering and art, and now where are we, these culture wars. Elon Musk is in every news story, and it's just a very, very good time for it. And because of the heat of the argument, I look at the heat, I acknowledge the heat, and then say that there's another way than the heat. That's what I'm trying to do.
Mm,
Post woke is a term that's been used by a reviewer, which is lovely, because I don't like being anti woke. I don't like being anti anything, though that's good for sales, but that's not what the book is. It's just saying there's something after all this, which is why I'm probably on your podcast, because it's a reflective thing. It's not a
yeah.
fighty thing, and that's the idea about it. It's trying to make things better, not to wind
Yeah.
things up further.
Yeah, exactly. It's allow people to really think about this in multiple stages to see how it branches out into something bigger, and I think that's beautiful the way that you set that up. I mean, after 9 books, I mean, that's amazing to think about, but just because, I mean, you were able to break down something huge that will probably scare people, but you broke it down in such a way that it'll help people focus on one topic at a time, stammering, music, and then the culture of what's happening now. And then, I mean, come on, it helps people recognize what was and what is and what could be, and if
Mm.
people start realizing that phrase, then people will be like, okay, they can reflect on their lives differently. They could reflect on what's going on in society, in their environment, the community differently, because so many people get scared and they freak out and panic and then force other people to feel what they're feeling. And it's just like, we can't continue this anymore. You know what I mean? We can't continue to push our emotions, especially our fears, onto other people when it's not meant for them. You know what I mean? So I absolutely agree with this. So I guess to know a little bit more about you, um, if you could choose any superpower, what superpower would it be?
Classic. Uh, well, I would probably be a. How about this one? That's an open-ended question, isn't it? I'm not going to give you the typical one. How about I have the ability to translate any language in my ear to an understandable English in my head? That'd be a cool superpower.
Ooh, that would be a super cool power. That's awesome. I was thinking mind, you know what I mean? Like reading minds or having that discernment, you know what I mean? But I really like yours,
I
translating
don't want to read
any
anyone's mind.
language.
I'd hate to be able to read anyone's mind. That would
Oh
be
my
my.
God, to be honest, I would only like it just so I can know which people to avoid. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I gotta avoid that person. But yeah,
True.
that's a good one. Translate any language. Man, that would be beautiful to know any and all. Like, oh my God, you know how many languages there are out there? Oh,
Well,
some of them are
indeed.
just so beautiful, and some of them are just so hard to just. Are those even words? And so,
Exactly. Sounds
so
good.
it's really that is a good one. That is a good one to think about. So, what would you tell your younger self if you could tell your younger self anything now that you know all that you do?
Uh, I've got I've had a very rich life, and I'm not given to regrets. Just to let you know, that's a mindset. I just don't do them, as you can probably imagine. Maybe you don't either. But in respect to the question, my younger self, I would say, don't worry, it'll all turn out all right, and just keep doing stuff. Yeah, if you do stuff, eventually you've got a bunch of stuff that you've done, and then you're able to have a look at that stuff and go, well, good and bad, I've done it.
There you
So I
go.
just probably tell him to chill out and don't drink so much. That would be my two advices to him.
That's funny.
Backward.
Little Sean, chill out. Don't drink so much. That's funny. Okay,
Yeah.
I do. I like that a lot. So I guess to start wrapping up the show, what can be some lasting words of wisdom that we can all think about? Even though you already said so much that it was a really great conversation that gave some really valid points for us to already think about, but what can be some lasting words?
Some lasting words. Yeah. No, we have covered so much of this, haven't we? The media is not your friend. It's an amoral animal which feeds off your fears, and it's fun. It's both of those things. It's fun and it feeds off things. It's like a horror film. So realize that. Don't think that they're trying to help you or to help society. They just want your clicks. They just want your money. And look at what they've left out. Look at every story. Don't tire yourself out with this. Don't expect people to be a professor. But in every story that you read or hear, wonder what they've left out and wonder why they've left it out. And once you've asked yourself that, you have a different reading of that article and your mind will grow.
There you go. I like that. That's a great point for us all to think about. I don't think anybody has really said that in the way that you did. And it's not your accent. It's your words. You know what I mean? Those words, they held power because it's true, because people don't reflect on what is missing. You know what I mean? People don't reflect on why it's missing, or why they choose to hold off the rest of the stories of the truth, And people need to realize the truth will always come out. It's how bad you really want to find it and search for it, because it'll eventually come out. So,
Mm-hmm.
yes, that is something to think about. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed Sean and I's conversation and you would like to know more about him, just check out my website. You'll have his lovely photo there, and it have access to his book, access to all the greatness that he has to offer the world so that we can continue on thinking. So, with that being said, always, always, always keep thinking, y'all. Bye.